Hi everybody. Today we are going to be making an igloo landscape. So we are holding our paper the wide way because it's a landscape, so we want to see a wider version. We are going to start by drawing the igloo, and I want you to notice I am using a pencil because we are going to need to erase parts later. And if I drew it out with a Sharpie, I wouldn't be able to show you which parts to erase. So we are going to start by making a nice hill on our work. So I'm going to curve up, around, and down. So it almost looks like half of a circle. The next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to curve for the bottom, but not quite as steep as this curve is. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I am going to curve across. So now it almost looks a little bit like a turtle shell on our paper. I'll darken this up for you. From here, what we are also going to do is we're going to add where that doorway would be. So I'm going to add another curve, just like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that into almost like a rainbow line. So I added a line in towards the center. So now it looks like I have part of a rainbow, and I would be able to color this in. You don't want to color it in. Right now we're just drawing. Then from the bottom corner, I am going to come back to the igloo. From this bottom corner, I am going to come back to the igloo. And that actually is going to go all the way in until to the edge, because we will erase this line later. Also on the top, so I'm going to kind of trace this, and I'm going to pull that back from the top edge. And then I'm going to curve this line down. So now it looks like this is the tunnel part of my igloo where we would get in. From here, what you are going to do is you are going to erase the lines that cross through your tunnel area. So I'm going to take my eraser, because I would not see that hill shape through the tunnel. And you can see that I've erased this line. I'm going to erase the part that's inside that rainbow shape that we made. And then I am also going to erase the part that's inside the tunnel. If you accidentally erase that diagonal, which you can see Miss Tuttle kind of did, that's okay. I can see where it was, and I'm just going to add it back in. So now if you see, it looks like our tunnel is going into the igloo. From here, what we are going to do is we're going to add pretty much like stripes to our igloo. So I'm going to start, and it doesn't matter which side you start on, but I am going to add a curved stripe. We want to make sure that we curve it and we make it look like it goes behind the tunnel. But we want it to look curved because that way it's going to help our igloo look more 3D or three-dimensional, more look like it's coming towards us. Okay, and I'm going to do that. Try to space them as evenly as you can, but again, it does not need to be perfect. And we're going to make that kind of come all the way up our igloo. Mine are about a finger's width apart. They are not super close together, because if they're super close together, it's going to take you a longer time to do this next step. Another thing that you are going to want to do is on the side of your tunnel is you are going to want to add some extra lines as well, slanting, so that they kind of follow this, and on the inside. So you'll see that those are just straight. They are not curved. And where these come in, we can make these go right along the outside. So now it looks like that's where the blocks are. Now we need to add the vertical lines for our igloo to make it look like it is made of blocks of ice and snow. So I'm not going to come in and draw through the whole thing. I am going to carefully draw one row at a time. And you'll notice I am leaving quite a bit of space between them. I want them to be rectangles. The next row, so between here and here, I'm going to make it about halfway a line. Between this one and this one, a line. While it does take us more time, I will say that it does look a lot better if you do it this way compared to if you just made them look all the same. Because this is how it would really look if you are in a building that has concrete walls. You will notice that it is staggered like that, because that makes it a stronger build. And so I am just going to go in and continue to add lines to make my igloo look like it's built out of different blocks. I will also do the same on here. So I might just do a line in the middle, skip it, line in the middle, and one right there as well. So now we have our igloo all drawn out. The next thing that we are going to do is we are going to add some lines in the background. And so kind of partway up our curve, we are going to make our horizon line. That is where the land kind of ends and the sky begins. We're going to add something a little bit farther away as well. I am also going to add a path from my igloo towards whoever's looking at our picture. And what that is going to look like is I'm going to pull from there and I'm going to wiggle it down. Now, as I wiggle it down here, I'm going to make sure that it is getting wider as it comes towards us. We want it to be wider. Maybe I am going to add some extra lines just to show, hey, that's where the snow has piled up. Almost like a snowdrift a little bit. In the background, so that is going to be the space farther up here, what I am going to do is I am going to add some mountains, but I'm not going to add them like just a zigzag line. I am going to add them more like a wiggly, wide zigzag line. And that's going to go behind. I'm going to pretend that I am still drawing. And then that's going to go right off the edge of my paper. So now, if you look, we have our igloo, we have our foreground, which is this snowy area, and then we have some mountains in the background. Now, right now, it is not very exciting because we know our igloo is white, our snow is white, our mountains are white. It's very, very plain looking. One of the cool tricks that we can do is we can actually add just a little bit of shading to our igloo with our pencil. So we're still using our pencil. And all I'm going to do is add some extra lines. And I'm just going to add some lines here. And that helps it look like it is shaded a little bit. So I will hold it up closer. So I just added some lines along the edge, just one corner. So and I'll always do it on that side. Now, this will take you a little bit of time, but it is a really cool effect, and you can get right in there with your pencil. I would stick with pencil for this part because you can make some smaller marks than if you were using your crayons. That would be really hard to do. So I'm going to do this on every single block for my igloo. If you think that this might be way too much for you, maybe what you could do is think about doing every other block or a few blocks, but spread them out. Don't just do every single one. Maybe you would do one up here, and then so maybe one in each row could have that shading on it, just to give it a little bit more interest. But I really, if you feel like going above and beyond, you would do this on every single block in your picture. And this is a great way to show shading without having to color lightly, medium, and dark, without having to blend. You're just adding extra lines, and it makes it look like there's a little bit of a shadow to it. So I'm going to keep doing this, and you will start on yours. Okay, at this point, I have finished adding all of my shading lines to my igloo. And what we are going to work on next is our sky. Since this is so simple and plain, we want to make sure that our sky is kind of exciting. So what I am going to show you is how to use 2 or 3 colors to make a really a more interesting sky. One of the things that you can use is you could use an orange and red. You could use a red and violet. You could use a blue and violet, or purple, same thing. You can also, if you have it, use a kind of that red violet color, and it says it right on the side. Red violet is kind of that purplishy pink color that some of you call it, and that kind of goes in between purple and violet. So I am putting mine in order of the color wheel. So I have orange at the top, then red, then the red violet, then violet, and blue at the bottom. So these all go in order. So you can do any 2 that are next to each other. If you want to try to go above and beyond, you could do 3 colors that go with each other. And what you are going to do is you are going to start with your lightest color first. Your lightest color is the one closest at the top. So orange is lighter than red. Red is lighter than the red violet. The red violet is lighter than this one, and blue is darker than that. The purple, okay, so that is, you are going to be picking 2 or 3 colors today. So I think that Miss Tuttle is going to use the orange, the red, and the red violet. If you do not have a red violet, you can absolutely just use orange, red, and purple. And I think I'll do that just in case. So again, my first color is going to be the orange, and I just realized I have a yellow orange, not a regular orange. Does not make a huge difference, but sometimes it is good to be specific. So my orange is a little bit dull, so I'm going to peel it just a little bit. You do not need to peel the whole entire thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in along where the mountains and the igloo meet the sky. So I'm just kind of making a line along there. I'm going to do this all the way across. And I'm doing closest to the line first because this way, when I get out to the larger sections, it's going to be a lot easier for me to color. I can be a little bit less careful because I will have already colored carefully close to these lines. And right now I am pressing kind of medium firm. Not so hard that I'm hurting my hand, not so hard that I'm pressing down super hard, but I really do want that color to kind of show up. Now I can go in and I'm just going to go across my paper and fill in just so that it is above where my igloo and my mountains are, because I have quite a bit of sky space. If you have less sky space, you might only have your first color kind of down in the valley between those mountains. So as I finish this up, now I have my first kind of stripe. We are going to blend these colors so you don't end up wanting it to look super stripey, but right now it's going to, and that's okay. Next is going to be my red color. And I'm going to start right at the orange, and again, I'm just going to go all the way across, but then I will show you in a second what I want you to do so it doesn't look quite like a rainbow stripe. Alright, so now I have my red stripe on my paper, and you can very clearly see that it switches from red to orange. What I am going to do is I'm going to pull, and I'm pressing lightly. I'm going to kind of overlap that red color into the orange. And you'll see that that kind of makes it look a little bit more blended together and less like a stripe. So I'm pulling it down into the orange. I'm overlapping my colors. This is blending that red and the orange together to make a red orange. Okay, so now it's a little bit less obvious that it's going from orange just straight to red. It's kind of fading gradually. Now that I think I am done with my red, but I'm still going to keep it out because I might need it to kind of touch any of this up later, I'm going to grab my purple and I'm going to color from the top of my paper down to the red so that I'm coloring in this entire sky. All right, now, and again, you can kind of see it goes from red to violet. It doesn't really blend that much. So now I'm going to go in and I'm doing this with the violet and I'm coloring right into the red. Not pressing super hard, but I'm just bringing that color into the red so that it's not quite so stripey. Okay, you can even kind of color diagonally into the red. So you'll notice I'm kind of coloring into the red. Darkening up the top a little bit just by going over it again, not pressing super hard. Now, if you still feel like it's too much, what you can do is you can take the red and color your red into the purple and blend it even more. So you're kind of just pulling it up. And again, I'm coloring on a diagonal, which helps it cross into that violet and fill in the spaces that maybe I have that are left white from the paper. I am still coloring neatly. And you know what? I'm going to bring the red all the way up to the top of my paper. So now I should have a fairly smooth blend from orange to red to violet at the top. And this just helps our artwork look more interesting. At this point, you could add some extra details into your work if you wanted to. I could go in and add like a little rabbit over here. I could add some footsteps going down the path so that maybe it shows, hey, someone came out. And you would just do that by adding some wiggly shapes, but they would be closer together the farther away they are. And then they would get a little bit bigger. And a little bit bigger. And they don't look perfectly like steps or like footprints, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. You could add, maybe if you wanted to, you could add a tree in the background, and that might be a good detail to add. And just by adding a little tree coming up, so I would add coming up a straight line vertically, and then coming out with my pencil like the silhouette. The silhouette is kind of when it's dark enough that you don't see the color or the details, and I'm just pulling some lines out to make it kind of a tree shape on this side, and then I would come out and do the same thing on this side. And as our friend Bob Ross might say, we're just gonna make a happy little tree over here. And you know what? I would be a much happier tree if I had a friend, so frankly, I'm going to add another one, maybe even a little bit smaller. Notice I'm stopping it at this line, so this means it's fairly far away. This one I'm going to make smaller, so maybe it's a younger tree. Not going to make it huge. And again, just trying to make the silhouette so it kind of looks like a tree. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't want them big because these are actually quite far away. If you were to make one, say, right next to your igloo, it would be quite a bit larger. You might pull your line up right into the sky a bit, and you could just make a vertical line going right up into your sky, and the pencil will kind of cover over that crayon a little bit. So if you want to add some extra details, I would absolutely encourage it. Of course, you can also add some of those shading lines in your mountains if you want to, not over the whole thing, but I'm just going to go in and add a few lines in the mountains to make them look like there is a darker part and a lighter part. And you'll notice I'm always putting it on the same side because the light would be coming from one side and then the shadow would be on the other. And so I just added some extra lines, and now it looks like those mountains are a little bit more three-dimensional. So at this point, you are going to add any extra details that you want. I am really looking for careful coloring, filling the whole space. I still filled my whole entire space. I am looking for you to add some value or shading just by adding lines. That's called hatching when we do that. So we use some hatching lines to add value to the blocks on our igloo, and we drew out our igloo. I think these will come out really beautiful, and I can't wait to see them. Thanks for following along, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.